streets will never make you grow. It's not a seed, it's a gutter. There's no happy endings in this life. So this is my message to you. The streets will never love you back.
Pow! What's up, guys? Well, I got another story for you over here. We got Tommy Dades, first grade detective, in the house with us tonight. I see so far we got 72 people. Thanks for coming. It's always good to have you here. My family, I love to see you guys. Thank you for the support, the love you send me. I mean, it means a lot. It really does. What I'll do is I'll give a couple shout outs quick. The New York Dad, Gerard. What's up, Gerard? Frankie Batts, my moderator, Boston J, Live and Let Live. I'm Eddie G. Eddie G, that answer to that question is no. I just asked him. So yes, it's no. Live and Let Live. God bless you too. Remember, guys, God first. Without God in my life and in your life, you're nothing. He makes you stronger and he leads the way. 100%. CK, Chaitano Bracco, Alan Langley, O'Neill Perez, Robert Feebles. What's up, Robert? Yo, I love that painting. I see you doing that painting, me and Paulie G. I got to have that. You're great. Joey D. I see Joey D in the house. Richard Morella. Ramps of Wall Street. Dean Parsons. What's up, Dean Parsons? Thanks for coming. Rob H. Michael Papagallo. Michael, I like those videos you send me. Those acting videos. Keep on sending them. I love them. You're the best. So we got Tommy Dades here tonight. So we're going to be talking about the Joey Scarpa murder. This happened in 1995, but before this happened, there's so many more events that were taking place to this certain murder. So Tommy Dades is going to walk us through it. He was one of the agents on the case. He actually put handcuffs on the guy who actually killed Joey Scarpa. So we're going to have him on. I'm going to put him on now. And let's say hello to Tommy Dades. Brad R., I see you. Elizabeth Coppola, I see you. There he is, my boy Tommy Dades.
What's up, Timmy?
How's everything?
Good. Saw you in the chat last night. It was Police Off the Cuff with Bill and Phil, and a lot of your viewers were on their show, and Bill and Phil really appreciate it, and they're watching right now, and they got a good show tonight at 9.
Well, let's check out Cops Off the Cuff. Is it Cops Off the Cuff or Police Off the Cuff? Police Off the Cuff, 9 o'clock. Bill Cannon and Phil Grimaldi. These are two friends of mine, really good guys. Check them out at 9. We'll be done by then. But so today we're going to be talking about the Joey Scarpa murder. I mean, you were one of the guys on the case. I mean, you put handcuffs on the guy who pulled the trigger on him. And I know there was a lot of events that took place before the arrest of, the guy who killed Joey Scarpa. So, you're going to walk us through this. I really appreciate you coming on and having you. I mean, these people love to see you. I mean, you're like an encyclopedia of, back in the day with the mob. Seriously. I mean, listen, you made so many arrests. I mean, listen, you're a legend in that law enforcement world, and listen, I'm happy to have you. And these guys really, I mean, they love you out there. So far, we got 118 people in the chat.
I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, so let's start from the beginning.
What happened was when Joey wasn't a violent kid. He definitely didn't deserve to die. you know, he wasn't involved in things like that. He was, you know, he hustled, whatever, but he was, you know, he wasn't a violent guy. There was no violence in his history. What happened was we had done a couple of cases, and through those cases, people cooperated. And when Joey got killed, that was in the 6-1 precinct. So the 6-1 squad had that case. I believe it was 95 that it happened. And in 95, I was still working in the 6-8 squad. And how could someone have the balls to kill Scarpa? Greg was dead already. Greg Sr. had passed away when they killed Joey. So Joey, you know, there was nobody. He really didn't have anybody take his back.
Tom, I don't want to interrupt you. And the thing is, too, at this time, after Greg passed away, didn't it come out that he was a cooperating witness for over 30 years?
Oh yeah, I mean that came out. You know, that came out after, you know, during the Colombo War, and that was a major piece of defense attorney's arguments that he, you know, he was cooperating with the FBI, I think, since maybe the early 1960s. You know, I think he got straightened out in 1959, and he was cooperating with, you know, the FBI in the 60s. Then there was a lapse in his cooperation, you know, cooperating. Then he came back and cooperated again, you know, but that's pretty much public information, you know. It wasn't at the time when, you know, the Colombo War was going on when we were working it, but it all came out, you know, when people got arrested, and that all came out, you know, that he cooperated.
And the thing is, when that comes out, I mean, that didn't help him. I mean, it pretty much made him weak.
Well, it made some guys, you know, it also made some guys want to come in and cooperate because, you know, they realized, you know, the person they were most afraid of to cooperate, you know, was cooperating. So why were they going to go to jail for the rest of their life when a guy they thought that would kill him for cooperating, you know, was cooperating, you know? But what happened was, so I wasn't even involved in the original, you know, when Joey got killed, I was in the 6-8 squad at the time. I remember the night that it happened. So from there, we were doing things in the 6-8 while I was still in the squad, which was very unusual to do some of the stuff we were doing in the squad. We were doing some big takedowns. And from the squad, I got transferred to the intelligence division. And once I got transferred, me and Galetta went. We had 2 other partners, and a lieutenant, Jimmy Hawkins, Lieutenant O'Brien, and we were in an organized crime unit there for 7 years. And when I got to Intel, some of the guys who cooperated, you know, we were working with Jim Walden at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and people were telling us, you know, what really, you know, happened. But when Joey first got shot, what happened was this was all over pot. It was somebody saw some pot in someone's house, and they told it was Joey. It was a friend of Joey's. I won't mention his name, and Vinny Rizzuto, and they mentioned it to Vinny, and Vinny went back. And there was, when the girlfriend was home, one of the guys who were dealing, knowing there was pot money in the house, and stole the pot, stole the money. And what happened was, at the time that they killed Joey, the reason they kill him is because they believe that he gave Vinny Rizzuto's name up to, you know, to the guys that he ripped off. And they thought they were nobodies, which they really were, but they were under Frankie Fabiano's umbrella. They were dealing pot under Frankie Fab's umbrella. So they were playing a tough guy with Joey, and I think they pulled a gun on him. And they
Tom, I want to interrupt you. Let the people know who Frankie Fabiano was.
And yes, Greg Jr. was away when Joey was killed.
Frankie Fabiano, he was
Piano was a soldier in the Gambino crime family and Sammy Gravano's crew. And it was also Mikey Scar's brother-in-law.
Mikey Scar's brother-in-law.
That's
Mikey Scar's. Okay.
So they were hanging out at First and Gold up on 18th Avenue. Frankie Fat, Babe Serrano, all these guys. And what happens is these two guys tell Frankie they got ripped off, and rumor gets back. Somehow they find out that Joey may have known what happened. I think they pulled a gun on Joey, and Joey may have given up Vinny's name, or allegedly gave up Vinny's name. And at that point, they set that they tell Joey and Joey's friend that they're going to take a ride, maybe something with credit cards. That there was a reason for take a ride to Sheepshead Bay. And Russell and Ronald Carlucci are both is Vinny Rizzuto's cousins, and their uncle was Swaggy. And they drive down Brown Street in Sheepshead Bay. And Vinny tells them, Vinny's in the back seat, and he tells Joey, pull over for a second. And Russell and Ronald are following him. And he shoots Joey twice. And if he didn't shoot him the second time, the passenger would have got killed too. That passenger jumps out of the car and takes off running. And they're shooting at him as he's running. He runs right into a housing police car. And Russell and Ronald and Vinny jump in the car and they take off. So this kid who witnessed it and was marked for death too, they brought him into the DA's office. I remember seeing him up there. We had a big meeting with a lot of people, just to, I was invited to the meeting just because we were involved in some cases in the neighborhood at the time while I was in the 6'8". And he was reluctant to come forward, even though they tried to kill him. So what happened was Joe Ponzi from the DA's office had a very good rapport with him, and I ended up going to his house, and I had a long talk with him, and he agreed to tell me the whole story. So he tells me the whole story, and right now we know exactly what happened, why it happened, and everything else. I get transferred to the intelligence division, and we do a case. And now at this point, Russell is a fugitive because he's wanted on a drug conspiracy in the Michael DeRosa, Jimmy Galleone case. And he's wanted on a drug conspiracy, and he's in the wind. Out of 40 people that we had to lock up that day, we got 39. And Russell was the only one we didn't grab. He was on the run.
Wow.
So he was on the run because he knew that we were locking him up. We came to his house, he wasn't there, and he took off. He doesn't know, that we know everything about the homicide yet. We're not involved at that point yet. So then when we do that case, other people step forward related to conspiracies to kill that witness a second time. And now Joey Rizzuto becomes part of that murder conspiracy. And it's Joey, it's his brother Vinny who's the shooter, because they try to kill this other kid twice. It's Ronald and Russell Carlucci, Frankie Fat. They send Joey D'Angelo to see if Vinny Rizzuto has the pot when he lived in Staten Island. I think him and I don't know if it was Babe. That's Joey. He was a made guy under Sammy too. That was like Sammy's adopted son back in the day. And Joey and I believe Babe Serrano or this guy Remy, I forget who he went with, and they snuck and they broke into Vinny's apartment looking for the pot. And the pot, they don't find it. So what happens then is they grab Joey, these two guys were nobodies. And they grabbed Joey, they put a gun to Joey, and allegedly Joey said, it wasn't me, I had nothing to do with this, it was Vinny. That's what's allegedly was said. And now he basically marked him and this other guy a best of friends. They were like one and the same. They marked themselves for death. So when we get involved now, we stop those two guys that were nobodies. They both cooperate. And we start putting a case together against Frankie Fapp, against Joey D'Angelo, Babe Serrano, Remy, Vinny Rizzuto, Joey Rizzuto, Russell Carlucci on the second charge, Ronald Carlucci, a bunch of guys on pot charges and the actual murder. So Vinny now takes off. And I think if I'm correct, it's like 2 or 3 years Vinny's on the run. And we knock everybody off. We do a search warrant on Joey's house, Rizzuto. We find a 9mm gun in the house. Russell, I forget even how we grabbed Russell, but we grabbed Russell. So Russell's on 2 charges, 2 separate cases. And we grabbed his brother Ronald. We grabbed Frankie Fapp. We grabbed Joey D'Angelo. We grabbed Babe Serrano, Remy, and those other 2 guys were cooperating now who were involved in the whole thing. And then the girl, it's a crazy story because the girl who's in the apartment, she's just a girlfriend of this guy. She's not a criminal, nothing. And we were we needed to find her. And me and Galetta were just getting lunch on 13th Avenue and sitting in the car. The morning we were told we need to find this girl. And we're seeing a girl walk by with a baby carriage. And we looked at each other and we're like, nah, can't get that lucky, It's her. And she was very upset and pissed off at what happened to her. You know what I mean? She was very scared. And she agreed, to testify if she had to, and she came down and Walden, and us, we interviewed her. So now the case is getting really strong. Vinny is nowhere to be found. So he knows we locked up both his cousins. He knows we locked up his brother. He knows we locked up Frankie Fapp and Joey and all of those guys. And nobody goes to trial on this. This is all, everybody ends up pleading. And we were putting pressure to get Vinny to surrender, And we get a phone call eventually from Charlie Rose, who was a sweetheart of a U.S. attorney who became a defense attorney. And that's one of the guys that the mob cops gave information on to have case those guys, Zappola, I think it was Zappola, Lastarino, and Conti, or Joey Testa, sit on him to kill the prosecutor. Thank God they had the wrong place. Charlie was a great guy. And so anyway, Charlie calls me up and he says, listen, the Rizzuto family reached out to me. We're going to surrender him in the 6-1 precinct, where he committed the murder. So the detectives there, we got them involved with us, so we got involved with the 6-1 detectives and told them what was going on as far as the shooters coming in. And I met Charlie Rose and Vinny Rizzuto at the 6-1 precinct. We processed him there, and the detectives processed him on a state end for the arrest numbers and the fingerprints and all of that. And I took him away and lodged him federally with DEA agents and the FBI. And he ended up pleading out to 24 years. Joey, his brother Joey, pled to 7. Russell pled to 12 on the combined 2 cases. Ronald pled to 7. Frankie Fapp, Joey D'Angelo, I think Babe Serrano, I think they pled to 5. And the witness that almost got killed, basically just went into the wind. And we made sure that he was safe and he was okay. He went into the wind. And that was the whole case. We got, it was a lingering case, and it was better served taking it federally because we're able to take everybody. And that was the first collars that Frankie Fapp and Joey took, and they got re-indicted while they were in the system on that by the FBI on a homicide, and that's when they cooperated.
Now, this is a photo of Vinny Rizzuto and Joey Scopa in the tuxedo.
Yep.
Now, let's just let them know that, Joey Scopa at the, when the thing happened with Mike DeRosa, wasn't Joey Scopa in the car with that?
Yes. When that happened, it was Michael DeRosa. Something happened between Joey Scarpa and Michael. There was some kind of an argument, and Michael was with a guy named my head's
Marvin?
it was
Marvin?
No, not yet. It was a kid, Rendazzo. This kid Rendazzo was sitting, came with Joey, and Joey and DeRosa had a beef, an argument, and Joey went back home with Rendazzo, who was an innocent kid, really. Him and Joey, like I said, they were just hustling. And Greg asked what was wrong, and they said that they had a beef with Michael DeRosa. Greg was on a bracelet, and Greg wasn't supposed to leave the house. And this was during the war. And Greg said, "Come on, take a ride." So Joey drove. Rendazzo was in the passenger seat, and Greg was in the passenger seat. Joey drove. Rendazzo was in the back. And what happened was they go. DeRosa, he caught a delusion that they probably would come back, so he called Marvin and Joey Michio, and they both had 9mm on them. And they pull up, and Joey's in the car, Rendazzo's in the car. Greg gets out, and he's talking to Michael DeRosa, and he shakes DeRosa's hand, and they think everything's squashed. And Michio and Marvin to the side, and Greg pulls out a gun and shoots DeRosa, I think 2 times. And Marvin and Michio open up, but Marvin hits Greg in the eye as he's trying to get back in the car. He shoots into the car, and he wounds Joey, not a superficial wound, and he kills Rendazzo. And at that point, Joey jumps out of the car and takes off. He thinks his father and Rendazzo are both dead, and he takes off. And Greg manages to get out of the passenger seat, and with one eye, he drives back to his house on 82nd Street, and he leaves Rendazzo in the back seat of the car. The kid eventually, he was brain dead. He died in the hospital. And he goes in the house, and pretrial services calls because the bracelet goes off, and he's got no eye. And Larry Mazza picks him up and takes him to the Eye Hospital in Manhattan or Mount Sinai Hospital. I'm not sure, one or the other. And of course, the FBI grab him there, and he's never released again. That's the last time Greg, is out in the street. So we go there, and there's 2 different crime scenes. Nobody's saying anything. Marvin and Michio are long gone. DeRosa's in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. He ain't saying nothing. And there's blood all over the place at Greg's house. And we get a search warrant for Greg's house. And there's just blood everywhere. And the kid Rendazzo's in the back seat, and he goes to the hospital. He dies in the hospital. I felt so bad for his mom. She was from the other side. And we had to break the news to her. And it was just very sad. But Joey, DeRosa recovers. Greg never gets out of jail. And Joey, Joey eventually, gets killed. But Joey wasn't his brother, and Joey wasn't his father. Joey was just a kid, kid in the street, a product of his environment. I had several dealings with him. I never arrested Joey. He was respectful to us, and he really got killed for nothing.
And that case, as we know, the kid Joey Michio gets murdered. Messi Marvin gets picked up. Mike DeRosa gets picked up. Gregory Scarpa gets picked up. He dies in jail, and But you say Joey was an innocent kid, okay? Now,
innocent meaning in the way, compared to most guys out in the street. You know what I'm saying? Joey wasn't out there shooting nobody, stabbing
Yeah.
nobody. He was
Yeah.
hustling.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question now. There's a story out there when Gregory Scarpa tells his son he has to kill his own friend.
I heard that.
You heard that story?
Yes.
Let's talk about that story for a minute.
I was a kid named Patrick Porco.
Okay.
And there was an incident that took place where a kid on Halloween got killed on 15th Avenue on the stairs of a church throwing eggs. And Patrick was involved in that. And they believed that Patrick was going to talk to the cops. And Greg Sr. wanted Joey to kill his friend, Patrick. And he couldn't, he cried. He couldn't do it. He said, I can't do it. And from what I understand, Greg, really ripped into him for not doing it, And he eventually gets killed by a guy who we locked up that beat the case. Beat the case because of some technicalities. But we did lock him up. When I worked in the Brooklyn DA's office, we locked him up for killing Patrick Porco. And Greg, he pulled the trigger, and Joey couldn't do it. Joey couldn't do it.
So he couldn't kill his friend.
No.
The reason I bring that up, I just want them to have an idea of, how Joey was. Like you said, he wasn't like his brother. His older brother was more of a killer. He just was involved in this life. He fell to the street. He looked up to his father. He wanted to be like him, I guess. And, in the end, his life is taken. The streets, how the streets are in our neighborhood, it's really crazy. Today you're high and mighty, and tomorrow you're face down with a couple bullets in your head.
Well,
that's just the way it is.
If Greg Sr. was still alive or Greg Jr. had been out on the street, that would have never, that would never have happened in a million years.
Yeah, it would have been a different ball game.
But he was on his own, and they wanted to get rid of both of them, and they did. They tried to get rid of his friend, but he was very, very lucky guy. If, like I said, if they shot Joey once, they would have got the other kid, but the other kid, just instinctively jumped out of the passenger side, and he was out of the car and running, and they were trying to kill him as he was running up the block. So we had an eyewitness to the whole thing, and then find out later on they conspired to kill him a second time, and Marvin was involved in that murder conspiracy.
Tom, let's change the subject now. I want these people out there that are watching to understand that, in the neighborhood, when you do prison time and you keep your mouth shut, eventually when you come home, you get straightened out. Someone in the Fife family, someone's going to end up picking you up, put you in their crew, and eventually, they're going to make you, and now you're a part of the family, because this is what goes on,
Well, now, guys who are away doing some, decent amount of time, they're making, connections. They're with guys that they know from the streets in prison. And as it starts to get close that they're getting out, arrangements are made and who they're going to go check in with and see when they get out of jail, even though it's hard a little bit at the beginning when they're on federal probation, But there's especially today, more so today than ever, if you went away for a decent amount of time and you're coming out, you're getting made. And there are some guys, very few guys, that are very smart and get out and realize what a garbage life it is and don't want no part of it no more. Very few, but there are a few smart guys out there that did whatever time they did and just said, fuck this life, I'm gone. But most of the time, guy who's doing, like a guy like Vinny Rizzuto, a guy like Joey Rizzuto, a guy like Russell around Colucci, they didn't walk away.
Hey, Tom, you know what? The mob has changed so much. Like back in the day, when I was coming up, there was a lot of murders back then. You know, now today, you really don't hear about any murders. What has changed?
Well, first of all, I mean, is a lot of differences. Back then, the caliber, and I'm not saying that they were good guys, but the caliber of guys that were out in the street back in those days, in the 80s, 90s, even into maybe very, very early 2000s, you know, there's nobody like that no more. I was just going over, I was talking to a retired agent the other day, and we were going over all the murders that were just coming off the top of our heads that just happened in either the 6'1", the 6'8", or the 6'2". And it was like we were stuttering. That's how many murders that we were thinking of just off the top of our heads so long ago, you know. And you know, the people that are out there, there are some, of course, that are still very capable. The mentality's changed. They're not these guys aren't brought up or really guys that, you know, have the heart or the will to be able to do what they did back in the day, kill 7, 8, 9, 10 people. Two, there's cameras all over the place. So technology, for a million reasons, not just with the cameras, but for a million other reasons, you'd get caught pretty easy. It'd be very hard to get away with it, to just do a mob hit in the street, you know. So that's the second reason. And the third reason, I guess, for anyone who's out there that's still capable, that's still from the old school, they got to be pretty old right now. They know that if there's a murder, you know, if you're out there hustling, whatever you're doing, yeah, if somebody, you know, picks up on it, investigates you, and goes up on a wire, and, you know, they could pull a RICO case together, they will. But violent crimes, you know, with organized crime, put you in the crosshairs of law enforcement. So if there's no violent crimes going on and nobody's, you know, laying dead in the street the way it was back then, I mean, we were investigating cases, guys were still getting, knowing that we were on them, guys were still getting killed. You know what I mean? That's how crazy it was. And a lot of people don't realize those neighborhoods were just, you know, it was crazy. It really was. But that would be the third reason why stay out of the crosshairs of law enforcement. Less violence, no violent crimes. People you're not gonna jump onto that computer screen.
Someone made a comment in the chat stating that they said, Jimmy, they said, say you come home from prison and you're hanging out with a guy and the guy wants to propose you and you don't want to be a part of that life. Now, how are you going to get out of that? And you see, you can't just walk away, because now that's a sign of weakness. If you say no, the guy wants to propose you and you say, you know what, I don't want to. How do you get out of that?
I do know of cases where guys were asked, and, you know, if they were that close to the person that, you know, asked them, that had the ability to propose them, and said, listen, you know, I'd rather not take it, not because different than being asked to go do a piece of work and saying no, you know, two different things. And they'd let them slide, and then I've heard the guy go back and ask, you know what, maybe I will take it, and they'd say, well, now you got to wait. You know what I mean? Or if it's somebody that you know, you're not that close with, I don't think you're gonna get killed over it, but I think you're kind of gonna get shelved from anybody really, you know, wanting to have anything to do with you at that point. You know, different than being asked to do a piece of work and saying no. That's a death sentence.
This guy makes a comment. Jimmy, they won't get away with half the hits nowadays. Like Tom said, technology, cameras, cell phones, and too many rats. But look at that L&B Spumoni. They thought was mob hit when a Spanish guy hit him.
I can tell you 150% that was a terrible, terrible thing that happened to one of the owners of L&B. He was an honest, legitimate guy. That was a robbery gone bad. The guy that shot him for nothing, because he never even got his hands on the money. Shot him in the back. And it was definitely not mob related. You're right. They thought it was, and it wasn't.
They thought he had money, right? I think the guy worked there.
He did. The guy didn't work there who killed him, and he definitely that day did have money on him. And how this guy knew he had money on him, I don't know. I don't know the particulars of the case, but very sad story.
Now, Tom, you know what? I did a video the other day on the Lucchese crime family. I mean, stating how strong is the Lucchese crime family. I mentioned a lot of guys from back in the day. As you know, all these guys are home. Joey Scopa, Giorgi Conti. I just want the people to know how serious of guys they were back in the day. These guys, I think these guys right now, these guys are very powerful guys running that family.
The guys that the guys you're talking about, they called the Lucchese 22 because of the sentence that they pled out, a bunch of them pled out to. So you had Jimmy Galleone, was a guy that was part of Lucchese 22. Jimmy Galleone's back out there. We locked him up for killing, besides drugs, for the Gus Faraci murder. When Nicky Tuzio cooperated, you know, we were asking him about his brother Louis was a bona fide tough guy, and we were asking him about the murders that Louis committed, and you know, we said, but Jimmy was with him. He goes, yeah, Jimmy would shoot him after they were dead, you know. So I wouldn't put Jimmy in the same category as a Frankie Lastarino, a Georgie Zappola, or Giorgi Conti, you know, guys like that, you know, Frankie Bones. I wouldn't put him in a category like that. Those guys were serious guys, and those guys killed a lot of people. You know, I don't think they realize how many people Frankie Lastarino killed.
I know, you know, that's what I say. I mean, these guys, I mean, look, compared to the guys today, these guys, I mean, they get big respect. I mean, when they show up, I mean, you know that these guys are respected because the time they did, and look, they killed a lot of people, these guys.
Forget it. I mean, they were, you know, they were Gas Pipe's main guys to go to for, you know, any of the murders. You know, they were involved in the Picciotto attempt. You know, I mean, George Conti, I think when he went away, I don't know the numbers on the other ones, but I know that George Conti took coverage, I believe, on 8 murders before he went away to do the 22. And he's out now. He was a captain when he went in. I really don't know what position he holds today, but these guys really came home. I thought they were going to come home and, knowing what I know about them, that they were going to come home and, you know, just bust everybody out and take over. But they've done a very good job of keeping a very low profile. You know, I do not know what they're doing. You know, I hear rumors of where they live, but I don't know what they're into right now. But those were a bad bunch of guys. And those were Listen, George Conti was asked by Queso to break him out of jail as he was being moved by the Bureau of Prisons and the U.S. Marshals. And they assembled a team together and actually sat down by MCC ready to shoot it out with the Marshals and the Bureau of Prisons. And for whatever reason, they called it off. But DeRosa and Marvin were there. So it's not like that's a rumor. We got it from 2 people that were actually present for that attempt. That's how crazy these people were. I mean, imagine trying to break a guy out of jail at MCC.
Yep. And this guy over here, Progressing Pilgrim, Tommy, tell us about Dominic Cerullo. Well, I could tell him about this guy because I did time with this guy. This guy was a Gambino guy, and I was with him in Otisville. And this is the time when John Gotti was losing his power, and Dominic and Lorenzo was in Otisville, and they were congregating, and they were getting ready to take over that family. I'm saying this is the people from the other side, the homeland, this guy Dominic. And he was congregating, you know, he spoke with a lot of wise guys, and a lot of wise guys were on his side. And one thing about this guy, I was not straightened out. But when I was in the cell and all the wise guys were talking, if you weren't a wise guy, he would not talk in front of you. This guy Dominic Cerullo. So you know, he went by the book, and you know, then when he came home, eventually became the boss. And you know the story behind that. Frankie Cali became the boss. But there's so many stories with all these guys today. And let's talk about the Frankie Cali murder, just to run it by and give them an idea of how, this guy was a boss. Like, how does this guy get killed? He's a boss. You would think, there'd be, he would have some kind of manpower, like right there, like a bodyguard.
But that's what's changed. That's what's changed in organized crime. You remember the time they tried to kill John Gotti, and someone popped shots at him, and they ended up finding the guy's body in Jimmy LaForte's club on New York Lane. He was scooped up right away and taken away, killed, and dumped in. I don't know why they dumped him in LaForte's club, but that's where they found the body. So, when I think with Cali, he felt very safe and didn't feel that, he was in the need of anybody, just like Wild Bill. He stopped using a bodyguard, Billy, and was driving himself. And even if he would have had a bodyguard, they probably would have killed both of them. So somebody else would have died in that murder. But Billy felt that safe. Like you see, there were surveillances that we did of Billy where he's surrounded by his crew as he's walking. And now it's at the point when he gets killed, Billy, he drove he was driving his SUV by himself and went and let somebody that wasn't even a made guy drive him somewhere that, he knew but didn't know well, you know what I mean? So that's how much he let his guard down, because times people believe have changed. So, nobody's guard is really up because they don't believe that. I guess they believe if everybody's happy and if everybody's making money and, everybody's enjoying their place, why bring that kind of attention to yourself? Because eventually, if you do a murder, your chances of getting caught up in a web is a lot stronger because a lot more eyes are going to be on you. And let's face it, I don't care how careful guys do murders and organized crime. People think, we've solved a lot of organized crime homicides, and people think just because it's an organized crime homicide, we know nothing. I mean, there have been some really serious murders. Maybe we didn't have the story down to the T, the next day, or know every player that was involved or every particular part of the story. But pretty much we had an idea. We were in a very good ballpark of who the shooters were, who was involved in it, from Jump Street, from right away. When they killed, when the murder that Joey D'Angelo and Frankie Fapp got caught up in was the Eddie Garofalo murder. And the Eddie Garofalo murder, I caught that. I was in the 6A precinct. And Eddie Garofalo was an associate of Gambino crime family, and they shot him. He was living with Shorty Spiro's ex-wife at the time, and it was on 82nd Street or 83rd Street, 82nd, 83rd Street, between 13th and 14th Avenue. Happened August 8, 1990, and it was Sammy planned the murder, and it was Sammy. It was Louis Valario in one car with a gun. It was Frankie Fapp, Joey D'Angelo, and Danny Farmer in another car. Joey and Frankie were the shooters. Danny was the driver. And his uncle, his cousin, also named Eddie Garofalo, is the one who set him up over a payphone phone call. And Huck, Tommy Carbonero, was the crash car. And that night, after they kill him, the 6-2 and the 6-8 are on two different divisions on the radio. So they hear about it like a little bit afterwards. They drive down the block really fast. So you got the crash car, Huck behind them, and you got Danny Farmer driving with Frankie Fapp and Joey D'Angelo in the car. And they both eat the light and make a right and go towards 14th Avenue to make a left where Scarpa's is. A 6-2 radio car spots them both eating the red light. They see the town car, the black town car in front, and they see three heads in it. but Huck was the crash car, so they pulled him over first. And they pulled him over in a car that he rented in his name, give him a summons. He's got a gun on him. You give him a summons for beating the red light, and he leaves. After they vanish, it comes over the radio that someone just got killed, and the cops put 2 and 2 together, and we interviewed the cops, and we got the summons with Carboneros putting them on the scene, coming out of the block of the murder at that time. And that's one of the pieces of evidence used against him that got him put away in jail. So he got locked up for that. He also got locked up for conspiring to kill Sammy out in Arizona. But Frankie Fapp and Joey D, that's what got Frankie Fapp straightened out, that murder.
Really?
Yep.
Hey, Tom, did you know a guy named Carmine Carini?
Yes, I did.
From 18th Avenue?
You're talking about one of the Carini brothers?
I think so.
Yeah, there were 2 Carini. Well, they're talking about the twins. And the twins murder, they were both, I remember that night seeing the cops behind them. Yeah, the twins were, I think the person, Rob H., can tell me if I'm right or wrong. The twins were crazy. And the twins were like 17, 18 years old. And they both were shot, I think, and killed in a van. And that murder to this day goes unsolved. I remember a lot.
Yeah, these are the 2 twins that were on West 5th.
The Girolamo twins.
There you go. Yes, that's what they are. I remember this. This was I think this was 2000, 2001. What happened was these 2 twins, they were from Avenue U, and they were mixed up in some crazy shit.
They were crazy kids doing a lot of things.
Kids. They were mixed up. Something with Florida, a woman. They were involved in. They witnessed a woman getting killed, and I mean, I know these. This is and I think one watched the other get tortured.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
yes.
One watched the other get tortured, and a passerby. They were both in the middle of the street. A passerby ended up calling the cops, and they saw them in the street. But you know, these 2 kids, they were pretty wild.
They were wild kids. That's why there were so many different avenues of possibly on who did it. You know, because I remember we were in the intelligence division at that time, and we were looking at several different people, you know, possibly who did it, because they had run-ins in social clubs, and so there was a lot of different people that would have had the capabilities and the motive to want to kill them both. It's sad they were 2 young kids. You know, they really were. They were like 8. I think they were 18 years old when they got killed, you know, and one did watch the other one get killed. And when you mentioned Carmine, the Carini brothers, they got killed separately. They were both, I think they're responsible for like 20 murders. And the Carini brothers got killed the same day in different places, but were put in cars on the same block, 2 separate cars, their bodies were found. And Joe Averly was the one who ordered that double murder.
And were these two brothers around Joe Averly?
These guys, Charlie and Anthony DiGirolamo?
No, I'm talking about the
Carini brothers. Oh yeah, they were doing work for Joe Averly.
I mean, because they were from 18th Avenue.
They were from 18th Avenue. One of them, I think, got killed in a gym that he was working out in Utrecht Avenue. I don't know where the other one got killed. They were bad guys, and they were involved. Hey, Brian, what's up? They were involved in, I think, about 20 murders, and they were under Joe Waverly's umbrella, you know, and they were doing murders on their own, and they were doing murders for Joe Averly. And they botched something. There was a whole big story on something that they screwed up, and that's why they died, you know.
Did it ever come out who killed them?
Nope. I'll
tell you, Tom, we got 498 people in the chat.
Wow. I didn't think that many people were that interested in this.
Yeah, you're one of our star guests.
Thank you, everybody, for watching.
But I tell you, you know what? All this stuff back in the day. How about, remember the disco club on 18th Avenue and 86th Street, Romeo and Juliet?
That was a bloodbath. That place. That was a bloodbath. That long staircase.
That long staircase going all the way up. Okay. And I went in there a couple of times. I remember the kid Gasper from 18th Avenue. He was a wild kid with Angelo the Guinea.
I don't know if you remember Anthony Frezza.
Anthony
Frezza.
I'm a little younger than them.
Anthony Frezza, as a kid, I knew him well. You know, he was a bouncer up there. And I knew he was crazy, but never knew how crazy he really was. I actually identified his remains when they got dug up because he still had a black onyx ring on his finger. And he got killed. He killed Joey D'Angelo's father, Stymie, in Tally's bar. And he got killed over that. And he got buried. And when the two guys cooperated, they didn't even know who they buried. The FBI had come to the 6-8 and they showed me the pictures, and Anthony's body was never found. And I recognized the friggin' ring. And I got in touch with his mother and father, who had moved out of state. And they had the FBI come and get DNA, and it was a positive hit. But Frezza was crazy. And I never realized that, you know, he did 7 murders with Carmine Sessa. And I seen him take a guy in Romeo and Juliet and throw him down that flight of stairs. And that'd be 40 stairs there. I thought he killed the guy, you know?
Oh, forget it. But I remember some other kid from 17th Avenue and 86th Street. I remember him, some other guy hitting him with a hammer in the head. I mean, back in the day, I mean, the neighbor was crazy.
The fights that I mean, listen, even when we were growing up, the fights that we got into in nightclubs, like, at least back then, you know, from what I remember with us, it was there was car antennas and things like that, maybe little knives that guys were stabbing people with, but it wasn't guns, you know, it was mostly, you know, guys with their fists. But we were usually always outnumbered, you know, and ended up in the emergency room. But it was crazy. Clubs were crazy. You know, you didn't know who you bumped into, you know, for the stupidest reason, talking to a girl or whatever, you know. I remember Pastels one night, I saw one of the bartenders actually pull a guy over the bar and start like stomping him to death behind the bar, you know, like it was nuts. It really was. It was crazy.
Tom, this motherfucker said, if Tommy had to form a kids boxing team from any of the connected neighborhoods in the 80s, 90s, which neighborhood he picking, AKA who had the toughest kids?
All right, I'm going to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, be honest.
I'm not saying this because it's, you know, this guys.
Wait, I'm thinking you're going to say Staten Island.
Oh, are you crazy? Staten Island? No.
Go ahead.
Park Hill in Staten Island.
That's what I mean. Park Hill. That's what I mean. Park Hill.
They're talking about connected neighborhoods.
Okay.
I know what they're talking about. I mean, you're not gonna, you know, as far as listen, your crew of guys like you and Paulie, like Paulie G would have been a protege. You would have been a protege.
100%.
Both of you, I would have been dragging by your hair off the streets, and I would have got you addicted to boxing. Where, you know, instead of taking a collar, you'd be winning Golden Gloves or medals for knocking guys out. You know what I mean? Like, you would have took your aggressions out in the ring, and that's why that whole program is a great program if you really understand it. So in the connected neighborhoods, I mean, you got a lot of guys out there that think they're tough guys because they could pull a gun and shoot you, or take a knife and stab you when you're not looking. It's a very different story when you go up against somebody that has you don't have to be the best fighter in the world, but has some knowledge on how to use their hands, and they don't. And the craziest guy that you may think, like a George Conti, could kill 20 people, but maybe in my day, you know, when I was healthy, me and George Conti meet up together, and it's just our hands, and maybe 30 seconds, I knock him out. You know what I'm saying? So
it's a different ball game.
Very different ball game. You know what I mean? So if I had to pick a neighborhood, you know, besides like, you know, the guys like the gyms that I had, like Park Hill, you know, working with Zab Judah's father and all East New York and Starrett City Boxing Gym. There's some tough neighborhoods and some really, really tough guys out there. Your area where you guys were, very, very street guys, and were guys that would go and brawl, not just use guns. So I would have loved to like have had you guys under my wing, mentoring you guys in the right way, and fighting in rings, because we would have made the newspapers. You know, Paulie G would have been Paulie Brass, but he'd been Paulie Brass in a good way, and I've been putting, you know, trophies over his neck instead of him having to worry about getting collared. He'd be too tired to fight in the street because he'd be so tired from fighting in the gym, you know, and that goes for you too.
Yeah. And Paulie G, I tell you, you know what? Not because, you know, he was one of my dear friends, but he was a tough kid with his hands. He really was. And he was a good boxer. And, you know, nobody could fuck with him with his hands, I tell you.
And that's a tough guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like I always told you, no matter what walk of life you come from, you could be an IBM executive, you could be a politician, you could be, you know, a wise guy, you could be a cop, you could be an agent, a taxi driver, a baseball player. I mean, listen, there are certain pitches that ain't going to throw, you know, too close to hit someone at bat, like a guy like Reggie Jackson, because they know they're going to get their ass kicked. You know what I'm saying? So if you got heart in any walk of life, you know, you got to respect anybody. And I'm not saying to use it to be a bully to anybody. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about bullying someone or shaking somebody down. You know, in this life, you got to stand up for what you believe in, you know, and that goes for all my respect for the guys in the military that they got the heart of lions, you know. I respect people who have heart. I respect people who stick up and stand up for what they believe in, even if there's people who are going to criticize them about it. You can talk all you want about you hate me, you don't like me, call me names like, you know, I'm not 14 years old no more, you know. But you want to step up to the plate with me, you know, and I'm no condition that I used to be in, you know what I mean? I got a lot of things bad under me, but win, lose, or draw, you know what? Someone's coming to the hospital with me.
Exactly.
Yep. So I respect anybody that I see that doesn't pull out a gun, that doesn't pull out a knife. And if somebody goes up on them, you know, they're not looking for the trouble. But if someone pushes somebody to the wall, they got to do what they got to do, and people think twice to go find another victim. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it.
Let's talk about throughout the whole history in boxing heavyweights. Who was your favorite? You know, I picked two. You know, I picked two.
It's got to be heavyweights.
Well, you could pick two from every division if you want.
Well, I'll tell you, fighters, you know, a lot of people may disagree with me. I know Mike Tyson. I've met Mike Tyson. You know, Mike had a lot of issues, but in person, Mike is a total gentleman. You know, he made a lot of mistakes. He is a guy who grew up hard as they come. You know what I mean? And he had a lot of bad influences as well as having good influences in his life. But let me tell you something. As if I got a picture on my wall right here, me and Mike together. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 2 inches taller than Mike. But Mike is 3 of me this way. And the speed on Mike Tyson, the precision and the power. My heavyweight divisions, my two favorite fighters of all time would be Joe Frazier and Mike Tyson. In other divisions, you know, Boom Boom Mancini would be one. Marvin Hagler, hands down, one of the toughest guys I think that ever put on a pair of gloves. You know, those were hardcore guys, 15-round guys, never stopped coming at you. You know what I mean? And they could be bleeding all over the place. You know, those are guys that I really enjoyed. Sugar Ray Leonard, the speed on him. You know, even Zab Judah. You know, if his conditioning was better, Zab was a beast. If you watch Golden Glove clips of Zab in the Golden Glove finals, it was like a heavyweight championship fight. Zab was kicking ass, you know, really kicking ass.
How about Marciano?
Rocky Marciano was an amazing fighter, but don't forget, Rocky Marciano, I mean, listen, I'm not taking anything away from him. you know. But when he was a heavyweight, heavyweights were like 180, 185, 188. How you going to put a guy in like Marciano against a guy like Mike Tyson at 230 pounds of solid muscle, who is Marciano didn't have boxing skill or even fighter skill.
Yeah, I know.
He had a chin, he had heart, and he had a punch. He could break your arms punching him. But do you really think he'd ever get a chance to throw those punches at a guy like Mike Tyson with that speed and that devastating power? You ever see Mike Tyson hit Razor Ruddock and knock that beast down with one shot? I mean, the power on Tyson was amazing. Was amazing.
Wow. How about Tom? You ever meet Gus Amato?
No, I never met Customato. No, but I watched a lot of documentaries on Customato, and Customato he had an eye for fighting. He had an eye for boxes. He saw the science behind it, and he gave his heart and soul, you know, to kids. And when he saw Mike Tyson, I mean, when he meets Mike Tyson, he makes the comment that this guy is going to be the youngest heavyweight champ of the world. How the hell did he know that? You know, he saw something in him that, you know, I'm sure other people would have too, but I'm sorry he didn't live long enough to see him win it, because he put a lot of work into Mike. And Mike, I think Mike's world was destroyed when Customato died, you know?
Tom, question. Are fighters born or made?
Well, here's the answer to this. You can't teach heart. So you're either born with it or you're not born with it. You can have all the boxing. I won't mention names of fighters, but there's fighters who have so much talent but have no heart, and that's why they'll never be champions. Then you have fighters with half of the talent but have so much heart that, you know, you got to kill them before you could beat them. So fighters, you know, it's a tough sport. It's a very tough sport. You got to enjoy being hit, you know, you got to enjoy being in the ring, full contact sports. But the one thing that you can't teach is heart. So if you get someone that's interested in boxing, you know, it's a great thing if you have interest in and like the sport. But if you don't have heart, that's something you can never teach. You could teach technique, you could teach styles, you could practice, but you can't get into somebody's head or their heart. What happens with boxing is, and I think everybody who fought or ever got in the ring will tell you this, before any fight, no matter how good or bad you are, your heart's going to pump a little bit. You're going to get butterflies in your stomach. The second is what I used to tell all the kids. Don't worry about what you're feeling. That's adrenaline. That's all good. You know, God gives you fear for a reason. Use it to your advantage. Once that bell rings and you're fighting, those butterflies are gone. You don't feel them no more. You're just in the moment. If you still feel those butterflies while you're fighting, and your heart's still fluttering from nervousness, then the sport's not for you.
Tom, what did Tommy think when the NYPD got rid of the PAL boxing program?
Oh, I was sick to my stomach, please. We had, you know, the PAL, there was boxing gyms in every borough, okay? You had Webster in the Bronx, you had Harlem PAL, you had Park Hill, you had Sunset Park. I forget the name of the one in Queens. It was a great program. It really was. It worked. We used to go to meetings once a week at the PAL headquarters on 12th Street, Manhattan. We took the kids everywhere. World champions came out of that. Golden Glove champions came out of that. The kids didn't pay for anything. And one day we get a phone call after I had Park Hill with Gary Starks for 5 years that they're ready to do it in and end it. And their excuse was that they were afraid of lawsuits. I did a little research before the last meeting. Every other sport in the PAL had put lawsuits in on getting injuries. There was never a lawsuit ever with boxing. The PAL and the Catholic Church worked together years ago to integrate different nationalities in boxing. Boxing is a part of the PAL, and they got rid of it. And to two people's credit, Dave Sieve, who was the boxing coach, he was a retired lieutenant. He was the boxing coach of the NYPD boxing team. Cops fighting 4 kids. And Patty Russo, who runs the whole organization now, who was the director of the PAL, and it was above him, making that call. Patty still runs 3 New York City cops and kids gyms, one in the Berry Homes, one in Park Hill, which is still going. Gary Starks is still there, and one in Flatbush Gardens, Brooklyn. You got Olympians that have come out of there. You've got world champions that have come out of there. They don't just teach boxing. They make sure that you go to school, your education. It's a very well-rounded program. It's such a simple, it's not the all-win solution to the problems in the city of, dividing, races and cops and black cops, white kids, black kids. Everybody, it's like the United Nations there. It don't matter what color you are or what you do for a living. Everybody's there for a reason, and it's a great program. And why people don't help guys like Patty Russo and Dave C. There are people that do, excuse me. There are people that do. But you need a gym in the Bronx again. You need a Harlem PAL. And these things work, and they really help. And that's what the city needs. Somebody in politics that's smart enough to say, you know what? The PAL should take over boxing again. And you'd see a lot of those neighborhoods where these kids have a place to go. It's a lot cheaper to keep a kid in a boxing gym than it is to keep him in prison.
So anyone out there listening and you can make this happen, get in touch with Tommy Dates, because he's definitely the guy to get in touch with. But Tom, what do you think about Freddie Roach's style of training?
I mean, I watched Freddie Roach, I guess, the most when he was training Manny Pacquiao. And, he has MS. And to watch him hold the pads and train a guy with the speed and finesse that Pacquiao had, I mean, he knows boxing. There's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? He boxed himself. And I thought he did a great job with Manny Pacquiao, and I got a lot of respect for him. Vinny Pazienza is another success story. I mean, I'm sure everybody saw the movie, when he got in that car accident, And the two, I got to say this, they didn't have all the talent in the world that a lot of fighters had, but the best 30 rounds of boxing that you want to watch on YouTube. And they had more heart than anyone ever watched. And the fact that they would hug each other and kiss each other in the 9th round before the 10th round, and then they were friends outside the ring, and actually one helped the other one, work the corner for the other one, was Mickey Ward and Toro Gatti. I mean, those were they had heart like a lion, the both of them. And those 30 rounds of boxing were, you want to enjoy boxing and want to know what boxing is all about, it's, sportsmanship, because they loved each other, but they were still able to go out there and beat the shit out of each other. I love it.
Tom, change the subject. Now, I think you told me this once before. This guy asked JT, hey, Tommy, do you know what the real story is about who killed Tommy DeSimone? Some say Gotti himself pulled the trigger.
I can't tell you for sure that Gotti wasn't there. Okay, I can't say yes or no about, but I know, and I forget how I know, but it was because, there really was a story with Tommy DeSimone killing, a Gambino guy that caused his death. And Tommy also had a brother, and Tommy Agro is the guy that killed the both of them. Gotti could have been there because Agro was a Gambino guy, was out in Queens. So he definitely could have been there, but Tommy Agro killed Tommy, and he killed his brother.
Tom, what'd you think about Mickey Rourke as a boxer?
Mickey Rourke?
Yeah, the actor. What'd you think?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
I mean, he's always doing. He did those celebrity boxing things or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I just changed it up. He came to my mind.
I mean, the only thing I liked about Mickey Rourke is the part he played in the Pope of Greenwich Village. That's about it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's most I can say about him.
Yeah.
He was still boxing.
Well, listen, you know what? We've been here an hour, 10 minutes. People, I appreciate everyone showing up. I'm not going to take too much of Tommy's time. I appreciate Tommy coming on today. Maybe we'll do this again next week, Tom.
You want anytime you want, Jimmy.
I'll tell you, listen, these guys in here, all these people, the men and women, look, they love to see you. I mean, listen, you're a star guest over here, and you're invited here anytime.
I appreciate everybody. I really do. I mean, I'm out of the game and everything a long time. This is really like therapy for me, and it's like just hanging out with Jimmy because I don't get to see him that often. You know, I miss him. He's a dear friend of mine, and I consider him one of my closest friends, you know, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for him, you know.
And thank you, Tom. Same here, you know that. Philip Grimaldi, who are these two stunads?
Sauce.
But look, tonight, 9 p.m., you have Police Off the Cuff, and they got a good show, so check them out. They're my two friends, and you know, they're really two good guys.
I hope you guys all enjoyed the show, and we'll find some subject to talk about again, Jimmy.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, there's another subject I do want to talk about. I'll let you know. It's some mob-related stuff, but I'll touch base with. But listen, Tom, I love you.
Love you.
And I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, my buddy.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Tommy Dates, first grade detective, my dear friend. I love the guy. And to everyone out there, thank you so much for coming and showing up. I appreciate it. We had over 540 people in the chat. Right now, we have 483. To all you people, have a good night. I love you guys, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye, guys.
The streets will never make you grow. It's not a seed, it's a gutter. There's no happy endings in this life. So this is my message to you. The streets will never love you back.